but thanks everyone for joining us. I'm Hilary from For Wild Places. This is our trail chat number 4. And tonight we're joined by Matt, Gore and Giles Penfold, who a little while ago ran the Australian Alpine Walking Track to raise funds for the Bob Brown Foundation for 655 for Takayna. We've been meaning to catch up with these guys for a while to hear more about not only those adventures, but everything that they've been up to ever since. So, and before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands upon which we all meet tonight. I'm on the lands of the Dja Dja Wurrung people in northwestern Victoria. And yeah, I was just saying before that we spent a weekend out in the Grampians, and that's a very incredible place. It's a meeting place of lots of different cultures. And someone was telling me that even though they're divided by a mountain range, they were so different that they struggled to communicate because they had completely different language and traditions and all these things. And it's just amazing to think that, you know, what happened on these lands before we all arrived about 200 years ago. So we're very thankful to the traditional owners for caring for country, and we hope that we can, in our individual way, continue to keep their incredible culture alive. To get started, I guess I'm just keen, we kind of know all about your journey, but I guess on the Australian Alpine Walking Track, but just keen to hear more about the two of you, and I actually have no idea how you two even know each other and how you got into ultra running and why you both thought it would be a great idea to do this adventure together. So maybe, do you want to go first, Giles, and give us a bit of your background and yeah, how you and Matt decided that this was a great idea?
Sure. So I first got into trail running back in 2015. I took a gap year basically after high school and just decided to live in the mountains in a place called Aosta in the north, kind of western part of Italy. So I trained for 3 weeks, had absolutely no idea what I was doing at the time, which is always a lot of fun. And then did a 48K ultra in the mountains in Zermatt, and that was kind of my first intro / smack in the face to trail running.
Zermatt's home to the Matterhorn, which is like no small mountain, especially when you're used to Australian mountains.
Yeah, it was something like 3K of ascent and descent in that race, which for me was just like ridiculous. Anyway, it was so much fun, and it taught me a lot. It taught me that I knew absolutely nothing about the sport, and that's kind of when I first got hooked into it. I also spent a year living in Costa Rica and joined a lovely little trail community in 2019, and yeah, I've kind of been running ever since 2015. Matt and I met. It was somewhat serendipitous. Basically through mutual friends. I think I sent you a message because I didn't know anyone in Australia that actually did trail running and liked to run stupidly long distances. And so I think I bumped into Matt or someone showed me his Instagram or something like that way back. And when I got back to Sydney, I essentially sent him a message, and we went and did a 60K somewhere in the Blue Mountains and got along super well. And he absolutely roasted me because he's a bloody strong runner. And that was kind of it
was like a testament to your character, Giles, that I was on my final run before UTA 100 and really fit, and you hadn't done a long run in about 2 years. And then you got for about 50Ks, and I'm pretty sure you were blacking out at the end of it, but you kept going. And then I went, oh, this guy's tough. Not that fast at the moment. He's tough as nails.
Yeah, you feel like if you can start with the toughness and get the speed and the training, but you can't, it doesn't work the other way around. You've got to have that, I don't know, weird sense of satisfaction in, just pushing through. So
yeah, and I think
by fire.
We even shared compression garments because his legs were getting so smashed, and
that's right.
We were doing one leg each of the compression calf sleeve, I think it was. It was quite funny. It was a good first experience together. Onwards and upwards.
Well, now that you say that, I feel like the Australian AAWT was just like the perfect, second date in a while. It was like, rightio, if we've done this, this is what's coming up next. Oh, that's awesome. So do you still do races and stuff, Giles, or are you more just like going out and doing your own thing these days?
Yeah, no, a bit of both. I haven't raced a lot in Australia, in all honesty. I actually just yesterday signed up for a 100K ultra in the Pyrenees, which will be on the 1st of October, which is super exciting. But yeah, I'm less of like a serious racer and more of I just love playing and mucking around in the mountains. I mean, I love long distances as well. It really excites me, the challenging side of it. You know, you get to see and traverse through these amazing and humbling parts of the world, and that for me is very special and something that, I don't know, is yeah, it's special. And to have done the AAWT with Matt was something, yeah, that I don't know. I almost feel like we haven't done it, Matt. Like it was all some weird little dream. I don't know about you if you've been thinking about this recently, but like for the past few weeks, particularly because I've been in the mountains, it's like some surreal experience. Like, holy shit, did we actually do the AAWT? Like, was that me? What's going on? Yeah, I don't know.
It's crazy because we spent so long thinking about it and planning it, and then, you know, 2.5 weeks feels like a long time when your legs are cooked and you're in a lot of pain, but you come out the other side and go, that was like a kind of a almost 12-month, almost part-time job kind of experience building up to that, and it was gone in the blink of an eye. And then now we're almost a year down the track, and you're right, like it was such an important part of my life that I almost mostly remember all the logistics, and that 2.5 week blip is so, yeah, it feels like a dream sometimes. You're right. I know exactly how you feel.
And how about you, Matt? How did you become to, you know, sounds like you've been doing it for a while, because that UTA, when you met, what year was that roughly, do you think?
That was my second UTA, so I think that would have been 2019 or maybe.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of ran all the way through school, and then fell out of love with it during the first few years of uni, as we tend to. And then I had a bit of a gap year during my third year of university. I was living and working in Milan in Italy, and super poor. Kind of the only thing I could afford to do on weekends was take the €1.50 kind of train, because it was still a kind of city train up to Lake Como. And I just spent weekend after weekend hiking, just with my day pack on and a sandwich, and just sitting up the top of the mountains, just reading my book, looking over the lakes and the views. And then after a while, I realized that I'd hiked all the trails, and I started jogging them to kind of get further. And I went, I'm pretty fit. I can just, here's 20 kilometers. I don't think I can walk it in 4 hours, but I can sure as hell run it. And that's kind of just, and that's how I fell into it. I didn't know that it was an actual thing. And I got back to Sydney 6 months later and talked to a few of my running mates, and they were kind of catching on to it too, and found there was a whole community, and started running with some more seasoned people. And now is it hook, line and sinker.
No, mine was a very familiar story in that, I was a hiker, and then was like, oh yeah, actually, I think I did Oxfam and started to realize that, you can, if you put your mind to it, you can cover, 50K in a day. But then all of a sudden I was like, well, if you run, you can, do not that, but it just, opens up a whole new world in terms of accessing faraway places. And I guess fast packing is like a good kind of in between, in that you can get the best of both worlds, but then also camp, because that's one thing I miss about trail running, is you often do it in a day and then you end up at a home or somewhere at night, but you don't have those nights where you are just on the side of a mountain somewhere with, not another person or sign of humans in sight. But I feel like, had either of you done fast packing before you kind of set your sights on the AAWT?
I'd done Larapinta because I was on my gap year last year, kind of living in a van, and it was the exact same thing, but I was looking at these awesome long trails going, I can't run 230 Ks in one day. and what am I going to do for water, and the bag was getting increasingly heavy, and then I'm putting in overnight stuff just in case, and then again, I didn't know fast packing was a thing, and I kind of discovered it out of necessity. And so I did Lara Pinta in a couple of days, and then I did a lot of the Tassie, the long Tassie ones, because it's such slow going down there. It's beautiful, rugged terrain, so slow. So I did a lot of that in the kind of build up to AAWT. So kind of like awesome training almost. But getting
used to carrying weight and trying to move quickly at the same time.
That's right, but it's a very new phenomenon. I find it very different to trail running. It's trail running is my sport. It's what I compete at, but fast packing for me is my leisure almost.
Yeah, a different mindset, I guess. Like it's taking it slower and soaking it in, as opposed to just trying to, complete a set path or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. And often I feel like there are many places in the world where I'd want to actually not run it and just fast pack something like Mont Blanc, because just I don't want to be running through the night. I kind of want to be enjoying.
Yeah, you're missing out on half of the beauty, aren't you? And everyone keeps telling me about all the huts around Mont Blanc, and I'm like, that just sounds like my idea of heaven as well. Getting back to a home cooked meal and a glass of wine and chatting to a bunch of strangers on the side of a mountain also sounds pretty nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you came up with the idea. I think you said in the newsletter it was around February. And why did you choose takayna? Was that a joint decision, or had one of you kind of, brought that to the table in terms of it being an awareness and fundraising mission, as opposed to just doing it for the fun of it?
Yeah, I think it was a joint decision. I mean, initially we had kind of thrown around the idea of different organizations, but I mean, essentially we did some research. Matt and I had both been down to Tassie before. We both absolutely love the place. Just seeing what the actual work that the Bob Brown Foundation are doing, to me, like it made sense to choose these guys, because they're on the front lines. They're doing, like, it's tangible change. I mean, it wasn't like a no-brainer or anything, but it was something that we both really aligned with and thought, like, yes, this is the right thing to do. This feels good.
Great. I think once we kind of done our due diligence on 3 or 4 kind of key charities and foundations that kind of do the work that we were hoping to promote, it kind of came down to what was almost the most grassroots that we felt that we could get the best dollar value out of. And we thought the Bob Brown Foundation was really, really good on that front. You can see where every cent goes, and it's such powerful impact for that dollar. And then I think the second thing was just what we felt most passionately about. I think one of the ones we were considering was something to do with the Great Barrier Reef. But at the end of the day, I think we both just connected most strongly with the forests and Tasmania. And once we kind of decided on it, it was like, that was what we were, of course, always going to do. And it was just, it's like there was never really another option somehow. And it just, it felt right. And it was right.
And what came first, like the idea to do the run or to fundraise? Like, was it kind of one in the same? Or because, a lot of people do these things just because they want to do it, if you know what I mean, just for the sense of adventure and to achieve it. But then I feel like now with, Akana doing the tip to toe, and, there's all these other people, and it feels like there's and a lot of people do it for, mental health awareness and around different illnesses. And, but what was your kind of thinking process in doing it for a cause, as opposed to just as your own adventure?
Yeah, so initially it was going to be just Matt and I simply, doing this AAWT for ourselves, for the selfish reason that so many people love to, run through nature and challenge themselves and et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, after talking about it for a while, we did realized that we kind of wanted to turn it into something a bit bigger than ourselves. Excuse the cliche, but yeah, and we had a crack at obviously getting sponsors on board, raising money. Like it all kind of, I don't know, the pieces started coming together, but it did kind of stem from that one idea of like, holy shit, like let's go and do the AAWT together. Just like this very grassroots, you know, boyhood dream of wanting to tackle this massive traverse through the Australian Alps.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I think it's just interesting to see, because I've just been to Run Nation and, you know, watching a lot of these films that do, you know, document people's achievements, and so much, like it is still about you know, you're both doing it and you're both, you know, putting in those Ks on those tired legs. But I imagine that while you were doing it, knowing that it was for a purpose greater than yourselves would have been a big motivator throughout it, and kind of given it a purpose outside of yourselves as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, completely. And even from day dot, as soon as we got to Walhalla and we were on the start line, we were going, there's no way we're not finishing this. There's no way. It doesn't matter how hard it is. Doesn't matter if we break a leg, if we get bitten by a snake. Sure, like we'll get flown out to hospital, but with the
you'll be back.
we literally, like, if Giles was out in the hospital, I just camp up, and the second he's back, we'll keep going, you know, because yeah, you're right. If it's just the two of us, it's an awesome thing for us, and we've never shied away from that, like, underlying selfish want of doing it, as I'm sure every other kind of adventurer that has done something like this feels. But yeah, that's kind of what got us through, particularly me towards the back end. You know, when stuff really starts to hurt and you just go, yeah, like I'm not hurting for myself, because I'm doing this so that others can kind of connect with us and learn about this cause and connect with takayna and connect with the Bob Brown Foundation, and that helped a lot, knowing that it was just like, absolutely.
It's interesting how it almost needs to become like a selfless thing for it to actually be possible. You know, if you're just doing it for yourself, you can't just give up because you're only disappointing yourself. Whereas when, like, there's, you know, a community and a cause greater, and I can imagine having, you know, the good work that the Bob Brown Foundation is doing in the back of your mind, because you traverse through like such an incredible array of landscapes. And I know in the newsletter you touched on a few, you know, things that surprise, not necessarily like the things that you know, impacted on you in terms of the bushfire aftermath and the you know, the impacts of invasive species such as deer and brumbies, and the different climates. Like, what did kind of, were your eyes more open because you went in that with that mindset of, you know, doing it to kind of raise awareness for the, you know, preservation of wild places, to actually be in those wild places and seeing the different things that might have caught you by surprise that are actually affecting them and, you know, putting them at risk?
Yeah, I think so. I think over the last 18 months, I particularly have become quite sensitive to these kinds of things. 18 months ago, I don't think I would have noticed these things, but now, and I think this is part of my journey as a person. But certainly, you become hyper aware, and it's funny, we had this duality in the entire run where we were aiming to raise awareness of takayna and its beauty, but also the threat that it's under. But then also part of the reason we were doing this was to showcase the beauty of the Australian Alps. And I did go into it thinking that it was more or less untouched, beautiful wilderness. And then, you know, and then to go through it and go, oh no, it's not really. Many parts of it are totally ravaged, and this isn't some story about going through this pristine wilderness, and it's almost, you know, as in danger as takayna in some areas. It certainly struck a chord with me. Giles?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't have a ton to add. Yeah, it's a pretty simple thing. yeah.
And then
did you find, sorry, you go, Matt.
I was just going to say, and you come through these areas that are so beautiful, and then it's just juxtaposed with these, you know, within the space of 15, 20 minutes, you can go from these pristine areas to not pristine, and just the juxtaposition makes it so clear, and that's, you know, that's what we have to prevent.
And I guess a lot, because it is, you know, so isolated. It's the effects of climate change that are, or like an invasive species that are having those. It's not necessarily, you know, humans cutting down trees. It's trees falling down because of high winds or being burnt because of bushfires. And, you know, it's not like not man that's doing it, but at the same time, what's happening is being impacted by what, you know, burning fossil fuels and all these things that we do in our everyday lives that have, you know, and that's the scary thing, is often we don't see these impacts firsthand because they are out in the wilderness. And the environments we live in are very, you know, well maintained and manicured, but it's out there that I can imagine. Like, I remember seeing footage of you just like, it looked like just hurdles, just tree after tree down, and you just being like, where are we? Is this even the path? Like, whereabouts was that, and what court was it with? Like, what kind of just ravaged the bush so heavily?
So that was in the Victorian section, kind of about 150 kilometers north of Walhalla, so kind of approaching Mount Sunday and the first real bit of the Vic Alps. And my understanding is that bit had been burnt through, and there was just super thick regrowth everywhere. Yeah. But you're right, and then they had it was the massive storms that had come through and cleared kind of everything. And yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? Because that's you're so isolated, and it doesn't at all feel like it's, you know, anthropogenically you know, impacted, and yet it is. And that's something that even now I try and turn my mind to more, because it's easy to miss if you're not thinking about it all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And did you find that, like, because I can imagine your moods were a roller coaster of, you know, feeling positive and then feeling like, you know, I remember just what you said, a piece of shit, basically, like other mornings. But did you find that your mood was impacted by your surrounds, and, you know, at certain points you'd be uplifted by, you know, the incredibleness of it, and then other points just feeling kind of, you know, a bit melancholy about the state of the world? Were the two intertwined?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I think it's fair to say that this is the same for you as well, Matt. The kind of the most beautiful areas were where we would feel incredible as well. I think, yeah, there's some weird, very areas, and traversing it on foot, and being able to soak that in. And it's so interesting, the juxtaposition between that and also feeling absolutely terrible when, for example, I got drenched and got really sick on day 6. Like, it was miserable and some of the hardest days of my life. But yeah, I don't know, just being out there and seeing the different landscapes and being able to soak it all in. Like, there was some absolutely incredible summits where you just look out and you go, like, this can't be real, and you feel euphoric. And yeah, I don't know, connecting that to takayna and everything else was something very special, and it made it even more kind of, yeah, real and heartfelt.
Yeah, it sounds like and I guess sharing that with each other. And a question I've always had when I've looked at your photos, I'm guessing you decided to match clothes intentionally. Was that, what was the thought behind that? Was it just easier?
No, we didn't plan it at all. It was our sponsor who we need to thank. Salomon sent us a bunch of amazing gear, and it just
like, here's 2 of everything.
We were matching little minions the whole bloody time. Like, we would bump into people on the track, and people would bring it up. Like, they'd be like, "Why are you guys identical? Like, what's going on here?" it was bizarre. But
I quite liked it from, like, you know, looking at the photos and stuff. It just makes it, you know, you're a real team, which, you know, you were, because you just had to rely on each other and, you know, to pick each other up and, you know, support each other along. And I thought it's not something you see often, but I quite liked it. I thought it was you know, it showed that you were in it together. And I guess it probably makes it. But I did see that you had your own tents, which there was one image where you're above the cloud line. Did you share a tent, or you had your own tents?
No, we had our own. It was one of the things that like I love my current tent, and it's a single person, and Giles actually ended up carrying a 2-person tent the entire way, so something could happen. But we tried to have a bit of redundancy in gear in case something happened. And it's like one tent is a bit of an issue. But I think
that's a good point. Yeah,
it was probably a good thing, Hillary, because I'm sure I'm speaking for Giles as well, because you get to the end of the day, you've been walking/running together for 14 hours. You need a little bit of space.
No, I completely get it, because I'm the same. I love my tent, and it's a 2-person, but even then, like, even when it's just me, I think there's, you know, barely enough room for another person. And there's nothing better than escaping to your own tent at the end of the day, regardless, you know, and that's not even after spending 14 hours and, you know, 2.5 weeks straight with someone. And I guess just having that time to kind of, I guess, just, you know, not that you were, but, you know, whether you want to laugh or cry or just sleep or, you know, curl up in the fetal position and say, like, this is so fucking hard, at least you've got some personal space.
Yeah, right. And it was never that personal, because we could always, you know, it's just 2 thin pieces of fabric. We could hear everything else going on in the other tent. Like when Giles is recording his GoPro, you know, little interviews at the end of the day, and I'm commentating from my tent, everything he's saying. But yeah, I think it's just having that little palace to call you around at the end of the day is
worth the extra kilo, or, you know, a couple 100 grams or whatever it is in carrying. And it's funny, I think that people often forget that tents aren't soundproof. Like, for some reason people think because they're in their little cocoon that they've got some privacy, but yeah, there's still not much privacy in a tent. But at least then you can, you know, keep an ear out for each other and make sure that you're all doing well. But I think, I guess as well, having your own tent and having logistically it would have been like, you're trying to obviously keep things to a minimum, but then there's just the 2 of you. And because it was, I guess, a couple of days between food drops, so you were out there on your own, and you know, testing all your gear and knowing what to take. And you, Giles, having your issues with your jacket, and little things like that can, of course, come to be a huge problem. Like, what, I guess, takeaways did you have in terms of what you take? And you're, you know, I guess going in November as well, like, you would have thought that would have been relatively good weather, but it was pretty wet by the sounds of it for a lot of it. And what were the main kind of takeaways with gear, and what would you do differently next time? Overall, I mean, it sounds a bit weird, Giles. Oh, but there you go. It wasn't coming through.
No, Giles, can you take out the earphones, maybe?
Yeah, it's a bit funky. I'm sure they've got much better internet connection in France than we do here in Australia, so it's not that.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, that's better. Awesome.
Okay. No, I was just saying, we tried to prioritize going lightweight as much as possible, but at the same time, we didn't really skimp on things like, you know, our air mattresses were huge for us, because at the end, like, comfort. We slept like absolute babies, and they were so damn comfortable. But like, they do weigh a little bit. Food as well. I mean, like I think we mentioned before, bag drops for us were massive. We also had a film crew who helped us immensely across the traverse. So we were lucky enough to be able to have, to leave dry clothes, medical supplies, et cetera, with them, which I think without them, it would have been a whole different ball game. We probably would have had to carry quite a bit more. In terms of food, I think we did pretty well, Matt. Like we were carrying probably just under a kilo of food, probably between 500 grams, 800 grams a day of food, which in some certain sections, like there was an area where we had to go, our pack sort of weighed like 12 kilos because we had 4 days of food and water and everything. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, like we were probably carrying 7 to 9 kilos on average.
And what did you do for water? Was there, because that's the problem about hiking in Australia, especially on the mainland over summer, is that it's so hard to come by, and before you know it, you're just carrying a heap of water.
Yeah, well, we were lucky that it was a wet summer and we went early. I know that the AAWT in some areas can be incredibly difficult come like December, January, February, particularly up on those kinds of Victorian mountains, the Victorian wilderness, like the Razorback, the Viking Razor Wilderness, kind of before Hotham. And the reality is either you drive in with four-wheel drives and drop yourself water containers, or you take a huge amount of carrying capacity and stuff. We were lucky that because we were covering ground quickly, we were kind of, instead of, for hikers that go 2 or 3 days between water sources, we knew that we'd get to a guaranteed water source by the end of the day. But even then, a few days we went almost dry by the end of the night. And we were lucky, it was wet. So logistically, in a dry, really dry summer, that would be super, super hard. Yeah.
No, I feel like it's such a roadblock, in terms of doing hike. Like I was down in Tassie over summer, and it was great because you never had to carry water because there's so much water around. Whereas I've done hikes like in the Wilderness Coast Walk from Bem River to like around Malakuta, and I had to carry like 12 liters of water, and it's just like, it's just not fun because weight is hard, and the more weight, the less fun it is. But like, it's just one of the realities. And I guess especially with something so remote up there as well, like you never know. And did you, I guess, so you spent months like researching it, and I'm sure there's an array of threads and blogs and all this stuff that you kind of were trying to work out where you could find water. And I guess, is there lots of resources around for people that have done the AAWT as to where to do food drops and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, there's an incredible community. And also John Chapman, who's a fellow Victorian.
He's the guy who wrote he's written the book, he's written the book on the AAWT.
He's written the book on it, and it was like gospel to us. We both got our own copies, and we went through and underlined and highlighted everything. And because he'd recently re-hiked it with his wife over a year or so, post fires, so he kind of had the latest intel, and we got a pre-release copy. We emailed him and went, you said it'd be released kind of June 2021, is it on the way, because we're about to go? And he said, oh, it's almost ready, we can send you might have a few typos in it. And we said, yes, please. So that was actually an incredible resource, because he'd have all the topographic maps, and he went, at this spot, go down, you'll have to go through this blackberry bush into this valley, but if it's super dry, there's always water there. It's 800 meters southeast off this corner, you won't get another for 25k, so if it's dry, make sure you go here. That kind of intel.
Isn't it just amazing that people dedicate their lives to places, and this guy, that he's written a heap of books as well, like it's not just there, so it's like he's not, he knows all these places so well, but just that. And I guess it's interesting, like makes you think about all those lost you know, I'm the same. I love a physical guidebook as opposed to, you know, getting lost down rabbit holes of internet forums, because you never know. Like, you know, I much prefer an old, even if it is a bit out of date, you know, that, you know, things don't change too much. And having that kind of physical companion and someone that talks you through the vegetation, and so you kind of know what you're looking at as well, is an incredible help in those scenarios. So I guess that was November last year. So it's been, not, I guess, kind of 8 months. And I guess I feel like you were doing a lot beforehand, but since then you've both been very busy. How long have you been abroad for now, Giles? And I'm interested to know as well, like, you know, you both, I presume, have jobs of some variety, and, you know, we're all trying to make a living, but yet spend as much time as we can disconnected from said world. I'm just keen to know, like, what you both do for work, and how, I guess, what you kind of doing at the moment, and what you want to do, you know, in the mid to near future, in terms of, like, it sounds like you've both got the bug pretty hard, which is, I think, a great thing. But yeah, what are you up to now, and what's next?
Yeah, so I've been overseas for the better part of 6 weeks now. It's a somewhat holiday, somewhat work holiday. So I run a small little video production agency, which basically lets me work kind of from home. So I'm very lucky in that regard. So the plan is to be overseas for kind of the next 2 or 3 months, possibly more, depending on how things go. It's pretty flexible, which is exciting, but also daunting. In terms of running and the rest of it, I honestly don't have massive plans. I'm going with where I am. Like, I don't know where I'm going to be next month or the month after that. So it really depends. I do like to kind of design where I am based on kind of the trails and nature around me. Like I said, I've got this 100K race coming up, which I'm really excited for. It's my first race, or proper race, in like a good year and a half, I think.
That's awesome. And have you done a 100K before?
I have, yeah. I did. I ran 120Ks on my own in lockdown in Sydney, just because I wanted to do something a little tricky. So that was a lot of fun. And then I also ran a 100K back in 2019 in Mexico, in Chihuahua, up in the north, in the canyons.
Wow. So you used to, I feel like you cut your teeth on, you know, and you've just been around Mount Blanc. So I feel like, you know, you'd have your mountain legs well and truly dialed in by now.
Yeah, I've got the mountain legs. I don't know if I've got the running legs. That's the issue.
Well, it's all about the hiking, isn't it? Are you still a pole fan? I see you both had them on the AAWT. Are they something in your arsenal that you pull out regularly?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't actually bring my poles overseas, but I'm planning on buying a pair probably next week. Because my issue is I also do have kind of a competitive streak. Like, I don't just like to walk ultras. I like to kind of push myself and you know, get in the pain cave every now and again. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an exciting next few months, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. And how about you, Matt?
I'm going to sound very boring in comparison. So at the end of last year, after AAWT, I spent a bit of time recovering, then hopped off the grid again, went down, did some fast packing around the same kind of Victorian Alps area. I just love it. Fast packed the Grampians Peak Trail in a few days. I think I might have been the first person to run it, actually. I'm not sure. It's unofficial. I've seen official FKTs now, and it's definitely fast.
I was out there on the weekend, and I did look up the FKT because I knew that you did it like quite early on. And I was like, oh, I wonder if Matt's got that. But at the same time, you don't strike me as someone who's like, as soon as they finish clocking it on Strava, it's like, submit to FKT.
Yeah. I didn't. If I'd ran it particularly quickly, I might have popped my name in the ring, but I didn't bother because I knew it would get beaten in about 2 seconds. I was just enjoying it. And then and now I'm a commercial lawyer, so I'm working in the office in the city, back in Sydney, and that's interesting. It's very different, and I find it, yeah, the longer I work here, the more I really want to just get off the grid at times. And I'm already planning my Christmas break when my family's traveling. I think I'm just gonna just turn off all devices, pack enough food in my hiking pack, and just go walking up into the Victorian Alps again and not talk to anyone for about 2 weeks. Sorry, my girlfriend and family. But yeah, and in terms of the future, career-wise, I want to work in the renewable energy kind of this transformation of the economy. I think that's a really cool space to be in, and really important space to be in. And then running, I'm not too sure yet. I think I'm just taking it one. I do race a lot more than Giles, but I'm kind of just trying to figure out what exactly I want, and whether I do want to keep pushing really long distances. I'm kind of specializing in 100Ks at the moment. I've got GSER coming up as a 100-miler, but
awesome. That's exciting.
Which will be really fun. Yeah, that'll be my second 100-miler, and the first one I did when I was very young, 22, I think, and that kind of beat me up a lot. So, but since then I've run a lot of 100Ks, and I'm getting increasingly fast and precise with them. So I thought it'd be nice to push out of my comfort zone, and then maybe run Larapinta next year with part of the Westmac Monsters, and then beyond that, I'd just like to, I think, get overseas. I think I've seen a lot of Australia, and I've been very lucky to see a lot of Australia, but there's a bit of a bug inside me to go run in these incredible mountains, and the Dolomites is certainly calling.
Yeah. Especially now that people we know are over there and, rubbing it in. I feel like during COVID, you kind of let that, it was just out of your reach. Whereas now it's very much a possibility again. And I think that, that kind of trail bum life is kind of calling all of us to some degree. That's
right. I've got to figure out as a young professional how I can reconcile that with a full-time career as a corporate.
Yeah, especially law is, and it's having friends in that profession. It is those those early years where you got to kind of, do the work kind of thing and build the hours and all that kind of stuff. And that's the one thing about, ultra running, is that it takes time and a lot of commitment, week to week to,
Yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, it's what's important to me, and it's a big part of who I am, and it's a big part of, my mental and physical health, and everything stems from that. And that's the most important thing. So in my mind, if I'm sacrificing that for a job, then the job isn't worth it. So balance has to be struck, or balance will be forced in a different way.
Yeah. And I think that we've, sounds like when you were living in Madrid, you learned how to, live off a pittance, and, you can always go back there. And at the same time, probably pretty happy at this, getting the €1. Like that probably sounds like a dream now, just playing in the mountains all weekend, living off a sandwich, It's a funny juxtaposition, isn't it? You think, I'll work and get the job and all this, and I'll just take me back to those days when I was poor and exploring the mountains every weekend. But
that's right. I'm kicking myself that I didn't make the most of it when I was out there. I feel like I could have extracted a tiny bit more, surely, somewhere.
But as well, you didn't spoil the love of it, because I think that, that's the good thing about trail running, is that when you do get into it slowly, you it's a slow burn and you grow to love it, as opposed to it being it's never a chore, it's always a privilege to be able to go out there. And I think that, that's what we talk about a lot with the For Wild Places team is, it's all about exploring wild places, but at the end of the day, it's also integral to our happiness and our mental health, and getting away from the computer and people and family, and
totally. And that's
all part of
it. When I knew that my gap year was over, was actually when I was doing the Grampians Peaks Trail. I kind of still had a month or maybe a tiny bit less before, but and I was having it in Tasmania too. I was, running all these beautiful trails. I got it on Frenchman's Cap when everyone's there they'd flown in from all over the country, and they were hiking with their family, and I ran it up and back overnight, and I was there, and I just remember going, I think the one I did last week, Walls of Jerusalem, I think that was a bit better. I was going, it's almost like I've been a bit saturated with too many good things, and I need a bit of time away to make sure, because I don't want to like look back as I am now going, wow, Frenchman's Cap was such an incredible part of the world, but I didn't really make the most of it there because I just had so much of it. So I think, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and everything in balance.
Yeah, no, you're very right. And I think that, the work, it's also great to have a job that sustains you, and, and it sounds like what you're interested in, the renewable energy sector, is incredibly, interesting and impactful as well. And I think, I guess looping back to your work, Giles, with, film and storytelling, like, you did have a film crew with you on the AAWT, and that's, I guess, the next part of the project is to bring it back to life in a feature film, so that way others can share the experience and the highs and the lows of it. So where's that project at the moment, and what's the latest with the film? I know it's been an ongoing process.
Yeah, it's been a very long, arduous process, to say the least, but it's progressing. We're at, I think, the third edit at the moment, so it's going to be out in the next few months, which is really exciting, because we did have a few bits and bobs, obstacles that kind of we had to plan around, but it's going to be a very good one. Matt and I are very excited. It's been a massive team effort, to say the least, from the whole crew, all six of us. But yeah, stay tuned, because it's going to be out very, very soon, hopefully.
And so to add a bit more detail to that will be a Salomon TV video. And so that'll be a little bit shorter, and then hopefully a few months after that we'll be able to get a longer cutout. So we're actually hoping to get two cuts essentially, and that first one is almost done, and we hope to get that out within a month or two, and hopefully that will go to a global audience. 99% of those viewers will never have heard of Takayna or the AAWT, and that'll be really special, and an incredible platform for the Bob Brown Foundation, we hope, to kind of, and anyone that's interested from there hopefully will go to our website and then go to Bob Brown Foundation, and then beyond that we hope to have something similar to what you would have seen at Run Nation, and a kind of bit more, we hope, explores a bit more about our relationship with nature, rather than just an exciting action-packed.
All the highlight. No, totally. And I guess as well, because you've got the can't remember what platform it is, but the fundraising platform still operating, and your goal is to kind of use the film as a kind of second drawing in people to donate with the funds going to the Bob Brown Foundation, and the awesome on the ground work that they're doing there. So I think I saw you're at 7K and your goal is 20. So I think that, with the Salomon TV and the global audience, plus a more long form that kind of goes into the story, that will be really inspiring. And I'm excited to see more, I guess tales from the trail, but then also with that extra element of, you're going out there to experience and appreciate nature and to help protect it. So I think that will be a really powerful message. And it's amazing. It's one of, I guess, Australia's premier walking, one of the more well-known ones, but by the sound of it, it's in pretty dire straits in terms of, you got lost a lot, and you know, and it's not because of your own misfortune, it's because it's an absolute schmozzle out there by the sounds of it. Like what, did that surprise you, or were you kind of, because you'd done your research, you were expecting it to be, you know, in varying states of, you know, repair and disrepair?
We expected it, but the degree of it was just completely unprecedented. Like the burnt through sections for me were absolutely mind-boggling. And yeah, it reflected how damn slow we were going as well, which has, I don't know, some sort of teaching you can draw from it, I guess. Yeah, there were just these, I mean, it was stark, like these burnt out, just all you could see was charcoal on charcoal. That for me was quite confronting, and to know that obviously we have essentially created that, and also need to stop it at the same time was, yeah, it was powerful to say the least.
Yeah, because I guess it would have been 12 months or roughly since the Black Summer fires went through.
Yeah, and it made it incredibly challenging to navigate. I think when John Chapman went through and wrote the book, it was kind of, the vegetation was ankle high, and he kind of wrote, in a few years this might be difficult to navigate. Well, try
12 months on.
And it's just shoulder high scrub for kilometers and kilometers and kilometers with no discernible markers, because the trees with the track markers have burnt in the fire, and we're sitting there with our GPS, literally about 10 centimeters from our noses, trying to walk down a minus 15% gradient hill in the scrub. And yeah, it's things like that you can't know until you're in it. And not even on the kind of the AAWT forum afterwards, we were telling people about it, going, it's tough, and that people weren't really understanding, and going, it'll be fine, like I'm pretty good with it. And we go, okay, just be prepared. And then they come out of it afterwards and have gone, that was the hardest thing of my life. I can't believe people call that a track. That's unacceptable. And they go, well, it's not that bad. It was quite fun.
Well, we told you.
We did tell you it was that bad.
I know it's hard to know what people's level of expectation is, I guess. And, you know, not knowing you two, they're probably like, oh, these guys that, you know, you just discount someone else's, they don't know what they're doing, when really you gave them a good heads up. What was your question? Do you want to unmute, Will? And
yeah, thanks, Hill. Thanks heaps, Matt and Giles, for joining us. You guys are such an inspiration. It's amazing to follow your travels. I'm a bit out of the loop because I've been out of it for a month, but I did want to ask you about how you like, you're obviously runners, and then like making that connection between running and running for a cause, but you kind of answered that, and I thought it was really interesting that it started as a run just for yourself, but that led to becoming a cause. But I guess I just wanted to ask, have you guys been involved in any other like campaigns or causes, or like, were you coming at it from that angle, or was it the first time you'd done something like this? Because it's just really helpful to know how people come to that decision, because obviously For Wild Places is trying to reach out to runners and would love more people to make that connection and try and link running with activism, essentially. So yeah, like, is this the first time you've kind of done something like this before, or not?
Yeah, for me it was definitely a first. I don't know about you, Matt.
Yeah, it was a total first for you know, doing something independently of everyone else. And I think actually, you know, Hillary, you asked before, what would you change in terms of gear or food? And realistically, all of that is negligible. I think we did our logistics planning, we nailed it. What I think I would change if I had my time again is the whole structure of campaigning and fundraising. And I've had the benefit of, you know, since our project, seeing some really great initiatives, such as, you know, Tom Petruni's Run Forever project, and he's someone that's kind of in this space already and he gets it. and he just nailed it with the sponsors and the promotions and the kind of live films, whereas Giles and I, we were just making it up as we were going along. We were figuring it out, and you know, we learned from our mistakes. Not that there are any heinous mistakes or anything, but
but you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of an organization for wild places. And I remember, I can't remember if it was you, Hilly, someone that we talked to very early on with For Wild Places, but it was literally like 2 weeks before we were running, and we'd never heard of For Wild Places before. And the comment was like, man, I wish we'd somehow connected like 3 months ago, because this is exactly what we do. And Giles and I kind of just got to the stage, I think we were doing our drop boxes, and we were like, yeah, we wish we'd done that too, because I think we finally figured it out, but it's taken us a long time. And even now, like post finish, kind of once we have this film up, making the most of that film, I think will be an important thing, because we still don't really know what we're doing. That's when those kinds of relationships are important, because someone has the platform, someone else has the experience, and it's the meeting of the minds that makes it.
It's like a big jigsaw, isn't it? And trying to put all the pieces together. And I think the reality is that you know, everyone's still working it out. Like, no one's got the full puzzle completed. We're all just like still kind of trying to jam pieces in together and see what fits. And you know, having worked with Tom on Project Run Forever, like that was, you know, we were flying by the seat of our pants there as well. Like and that's the thing, it's trying to find that nice mix of, you know, admitting that you don't know what you're doing, but also putting a certain level of, you know, organization forward, so people think, oh, this is a thing, this looks great, I'll get on board. But also understanding that we are all just, you know, people trying to do the best we can, and find that middle ground where it is like some things work out, some things go right, some things don't, and like navigating that middle ground. But like I think, because there was a few different kind of, I think, you know, it's one of those things with being with For Wild Places, you always get people like, oh, have you heard of this? And like 3 different people send you like the same kind of link. And I think it was that what happened with you guys, in that, you know, there were a few different kind of points of contact, and people like, oh, these guys are, you know, running the AAWT. And it's amazing to see, you know, Tom's done Project Run Forever since, and now we've got Tip to Toe, and Corinne is running the length of the Yarra, and all of a sudden, and everyone's making, you know, some kind of film or documenting the experience. And I just think this time next year, there's going to be, you know, 6 films that tell stories of awesome trail running expeditions that are so much more than that, in that they're people connecting to the landscape, sharing the stories. And I think, you know, not only having your message, but a range of other kind of people doing the same thing will be a really powerful group kind of project that can say, hey, you know, here's what the power of trail running, but also why we should all become sports activists, and support the Bob Brown Foundation and all the other amazing charities, and just the people who want to do cool stuff as well, because, you know, we love getting out there, and it's pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. I think since having done this, as you said, I think there have been a bunch of running activism, really awesome campaigns and projects pop up, and I don't think it's that I wasn't aware of them before. I think it's just that we're really just with this momentum shift, and I think it's really exciting, and soon everyone will be planning this big and crazy adventure to raise funds for something that, you know, is important to them. And
it's awesome, because it's
great,
you know, you can't be what you can't see. And, you know, and as well, it kind of gets, even myself, I'm like, oh, what's my contribution going to be? What adventure am I going to go on? And we're all trying to come up with something that's new and exciting. And, you know, it tells a different story about a different wild place or animal or whatever it might be that's under threat. Because I think that, I'm sure you guys realize, sounds like, you know, especially you, Giles, you've experienced all around the world, but yet the AAWT is a very unique experience that just, you know, in many ways doesn't compare elsewhere. Like, it's so unique, and the places we have in Australia you know, incredibly unique, but also incredibly vulnerable, as you witnessed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that brings us to an hour. I know that I always come in with a list of questions and then never even look at it once, because there's always so many other things to talk about. But thank you both for your time and for contributing to the newsletter back in January.
Yeah.
And we're really excited to see your short film when it comes out on Salomon TV, and then the longer form as well. And yeah, we're excited to follow your travels in whatever's next. And good luck for your race in a couple of weeks, Giles.
Thanks a lot.
Hopefully it's not too warm. I can imagine it's still pretty hot over there, which, you know, how do you feel about the heat? I guess that's one thing you didn't have to contend with on the AAWT.
No, look, the heat's been pretty manageable, in all honesty. I think I just missed the heat wave, what was it, like a month or so ago, which is lucky. But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to racing again.
We look forward to having you back in Australia when you are, and hope that our paths will cross on the trails at some time in the near future. But I'll be working on trying to keep up with you both in the meantime.
Thanks so much, Hilary.
Thanks, Hilary.
Really appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, from the team up for Wild Places, keep up the awesome work. And thanks so much for joining us this evening. And we'll let you get to your day, Giles, and to your evening, Matt. So thank you everyone for coming. And yeah, we'll let you know when it's up on YouTube so you can relive the magic.
Thanks heaps, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Hilary. Bye.